different than anything I've ever experienced. I mean, people were talking about this in, little blurbs like before the end of last year, and, nobody took it seriously. They just took it as another flu bug, and then in January, things got a little louder about the coronavirus, and Dr. Trump made his own diagnosis that it was only coming from one guy in China. And, of course, he got that expertise from his medical specialist, Doctors Howard, Fine, and Howard. And, it basically escalated from there. And it just saddens me that the public was just too, I guess, obliterated by bullcrap by this administration to open their eyes and see what was really going on, how worse this is going to progress, the rate that the people were going to be dying. And it just really saddens me that our country is now put in a position by a megalomaniac, a narcissist, all right, an orangutan, basically, who is dictating the health of the country. This is the same man who would not give a rat's ass about you if you were doing business with him.
Well, listen, when we go to this, right, I mean, we're getting to, who's got a crazy personality. We're not a country of self-destructive narcissists. Is that right? There's not millions. In other words, what you said about him, how do I know 50 people like that within 5 miles of my front door? Isn't that the society? I mean, he didn't make this up in a vacuum. I mean, he was the apprentice for years. He's been sucking in every behavior, and now he seems to know who's where. It's fascinating. The critique is, I understand it, but it does apply literally to millions. I mean, you say that about Beverly Hills. You can say that about the Upper East Side. Yeah. Right. So what about it? Is it the epidemic of the bright? Is that what happens in a society that's starting to decay? The bright people are going to become megalomaniacs, and it goes that route? Or what's the big picture?
Well, I mean, he's definitely preaching to the fan club. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that America loves reality shows, or else he wouldn't be president in the first place.
Right.
It definitely, what really is bothering me about all of this is not the fact that, he's trying to establish this fake bravado, not that he's trying to be a cheerleader for the country. And I kind of sort of understand why things need to reopen, but I'll get to that in a minute. It's just that, what am I trying to say here? See, now I'm drawing a blank because now there's so many things going through my mind about this that I really do not.
Take your time. Take your time. Yeah, take your time and dissemble it the way it came to you. I got minutes now. I would love to hear this. He comes on the scene as almost unbelievable. Did you have any real fear of his election prior to? Did you feel safely, this guy's not going to get elected, he's just making a lot of noise? How did it seem?
Well, when he first ran for president, about 12 years ago, I thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened to elections. I'm like, great. He's going to go in there. He's going to bust everybody's nuts. He's going to really turn this whole political election process upside down, right. And he's going to establish it as his own public forum. And the irony was I was perfectly in favor of that. I felt at that time, politics needed a kick in the butt. We needed something different other than the corrupt politician. Now, this is what I thought back then. So now here he is doing it again, and in my mind, I'm like, you've done this already. Why are you repeating the same vaudeville act? Okay, we know you want the publicity. You don't need the publicity. You got your Mar-a-Lago. You've got the Howard Stern show. You've got all these places where you could, spout off your beliefs and actually still have people who respect you, rather than have to go in and take over an entire country just to support your own ego, at the risk of millions and millions of people's lives. And I do think that's what's going on right now.
Fair enough. What if the answer is, it is the heavy lifting? I could have stayed home with the money and gone on Howard Stern, laughed, and done nothing. This is heavy lifting. This is my country. I think Obama gave it away to the Chinese. I think business is getting trashed and business should be cut loose. And I think the country could be great because I think it sucks. That, to me, is so legit with the founders that some big mouth comes walking in and says politicians suck. They look the same. Republican, I could have argued. I was talking to my Lisa earlier about how she could have voted for Obama. I understand the world we came out of. It was all pros. No one outside of politics ever got near this job. Even Ross Perot was an oddity. He didn't get near it. This guy did walk in and get it, and now it looks like from all the investigation, nobody handed it to him. The 77,000 angry people, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, were for real. So to me, even if I hated the outcome, which I don't, but even if I did, I would have to defer to the whole process and say, the founders were smart because they left the door open for a non-politician to blow up their game. So far, that is what. But the outcome for you, how are you assessing now that he's there? It's pretty bad from what you could see, right?
Oh, my God. It's like totally over the fault in the barrel now. You want to talk about God bless America. Oh, my God.
So what's the worst? What's the worst? Yeah, what is the worst he could do? What are you most worried about with him?
I'm struggling to think if there's any worse that can be done. Okay, now the first words that came out of my mouth when he won the election, all right, the night before, on election night, as the votes were being counted and as he was winning more and more states, yes, the dread and the dreariness slowly set in. And I'm like, oh, my God, he's actually going to win. What the hell do we do now? And then the next morning when I read that he did win, the first words out of my mouth were, he's going to get us all killed. One way or another, he's going to get us all killed. But at that time, I was thinking, oh, he's going to, start waving his private parts at Kim Jong-un, and then they're going to get into the war. And,
is that right? Good for you.
You know what I'm saying?
You really were ready for the war
now, and this, and then, he goes out there, and it turns out that they make nice, when very few people realize that his agenda from the get-go, to meet with Kim Jong-un, and to meet a world leader, never mind the fact that he himself fashions himself after a dictator. I mean, that's old hat. That goes without saying. Here he is now making nice with Kim Jong-un for one reason and one reason only. He wants a hotel in the middle of Pyongyang with the words Trump at the top of it.
And
that is his only priority.
Why is that evil? That he's a relentless builder looking for opportunities, and when he always advocates his most controversial policies, he always says, I'm doing this for these people. I don't need to do this. I could just stay home. I don't need to do anything. I'm doing what I think. So, how many people from Queens, John, have you ever become friends with in your life? Do you have any Queens friends?
I got a couple, yeah.
Do you know anybody like him who's not famous?
In their minds, no.
No. Okay. Well, I do. I know a lot of people in Rego Park. I know a few people in Forest Hills. And I certainly have done comedy with Angry Bob at strip clubs on Queens Boulevard. So I've done
That's one
strip.
Of my comedy heroes.
You know what I mean? Like we've done strip club humor on Queens Boulevard. The guys that we were playing to were worse than Trump. I think. That's me as a New Yorker. I don't know. To me, I don't.
No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right about that.
So how do we get out of this? Is it gonna be destroyed? Because I don't. Why do I feel things are better? Am I deluded that I think things are better than when he got in? The tax cut was good. The business is good. Bringing out of China the what do you call it? Supply chain, getting everything. All that seems good. I don't know. Is that good?
You might have had a valid argument before this pandemic set in. I think you would have had a very valid argument.
Right.
And yes, and he did do a couple of good things for the economy. I suppose he was responsible for the job market to increase. Even though Obama did get that ball rolling 4 years ago, but that's another story. But he did the best he could to keep the economy going. And now the pandemic set in. And unfortunately, the only thing going through Trump's mind is the bottom line, not the welfare of the American public. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that over and over again.
Right.
I don't care who hates it. No, let this pandemic be set as a perfect example of that. He heard about it. He's like, oh, no, it's just another buzz. Don't worry about it. And then when it got worse, he's like, oh, well, we have it under control. He's going through his own percentages in his mind. And then, a month later, when thousands of people are dying, now all of a sudden it's a national emergency. I mean, he definitely threw the ball as far as nipping this in the butt from the get-go. Had he done that, the economy could very well have been better than it was before 2020 started. But, now we have this huge mess to go around, and people are dying. And now we are beginning to see the real ugly side of human nature, Ed. I mean, it started a few weeks ago, and I said it before it started, that people are going to start pointing fingers at each other. If one person's not wearing a mask and this one is, and if you're walking down the street and you're not wearing a mask and you're not social distancing, you're murdering people. I mean, it's just gotten to that extreme. Now, look, let me stop 1 second and say I sympathize with people's fears. I really do. And one of the mistakes I make on my Facebook page is, I spout off exactly what goes on the top of my mind. And if you remotely question the narrative, if you remotely question what's going on, what you're hearing the experts say, if you remotely question, well, I don't know if these numbers are accurate, automatically you're a conspiracy theorist. You're against the welfare of the country. If you have a question about whether or not it's wise enough to rush a vaccine through because it may cure coronavirus. Oh, well, we have possible evidence that this could cure coronavirus. Let's get the hydrochloroquine out there without it being tested on a consistent basis against this. Is that a safe thing to do? And I say the answer is no. But if I say that publicly, I'm an anti-vaxxer. I'm against vaccines. I'm against this. I'm against that. I'm a conspiracy theorist. This is the thing that's happening to the country right now, Ed. People are further dividing themselves over this when we should be getting together. We should be forming a bond and an alliance and do what we can to get this crap under control once and for all. I don't think opening the country now is a wise thing to do. I think they should wait until at least July. But having said that, I do sort of indirectly understand why it slowly needs to open. People don't want this to be worse than the Depression of the 20s. Even though it is going to head that way if we keep it closed another month or two.
Let me jump in here. Let people know who you are,
Sure.
where you're coming from. John Femia is a good friend of mine, comedian back in the day when I was doing comedy, long before I met John, a television actor on the very famous show Square Pegs, one of my favorite shows, Hello, Larry, and many great acting jobs, then into stand-up. As he and I became friends, this is the kind of conversation I might have with him, like occasionally, but he blew up a beautiful post the other day, just a striking rant from John. I grabbed it, I made it prominent, and I immediately said, my God, I haven't spoken to you in so long. We used to have fun talking, way too little. I want more of that. I want to do it for the listeners. He's on fire right now. So if you're tuning in, you can find him on Facebook, friend him up and find his pages, John Femia. And if you want to Wikipedia him, you'll find him as Marshall Bleckman on Square Pegs as a kid, a teenage actor. And now here we are wrestling with, like any two good citizens, what matters to us. Isn't that why we do all this other crap? So we really have the facility to say what the hell we think. And I enjoy hearing you. I think the more voices we get now, better off we're all going to be.
I've always loved listening to you, Ed, and I have to admit, you asked me to come on your show before, and I'm going to tell you right now, I was always terrified. Because what I loved about your stand-up is the confrontational bravado and the wonderful things that you've said, because you managed to take political humor and turn it into some of the funniest stuff I have ever heard in my life. And when you did my show at the New York Underground Comedy Festival in 2004, you were definitely one of the favorites.
Wow.
And from then, and then at that time, I wasn't familiar with how extensive your radio career was. So then I started doing the research. I'm like, oh man, you've been doing this since the early 90s. And, I've heard past broadcasts of you, and I love the fact that, you ride stuff like a bronco. That's what I love about you, man. You really are a bull. And I'm just scared to death if I come on the show and have nothing to say. So
I don't ever detect any hint of that. John Femia is on the line. Let me do a break and we'll come back. John wrote in defense of the Dallas salon owner. The minute I saw the case, I called her Woman of the Year. She was so beautifully respectful in her dissent to the law, which was, I'm going to feed my kids. Your Honor, I respect the lockdown. But if it comes to following a guideline and an order about this and feeding my children. Now, I was incensed by this. I was livid about her having to do this, loved her with both arms for doing it. But when John took up for her, I go, oh my God, I will bet you people all over the world love her. His passion brought out a great post on my Facebook page and got us together today. So we'll continue with John Femia as the Ed Tyll Show continues.
Florida Man Radio. You have Power Radio with Justin Clark.
Apparently, if you feel one of those little cold sore things coming